Special thanks to our promotional partners at the American Philatelic Society.
The APS is the largest stamp collecting organization in the world, supporting collectors of any level worldwide.
For more information about membership and APS services, visit stamps.org.
Hi, I'm Michael Cortese of NobleSpirit in Pittsfield, New Hampshire.
And I'm Charles Epting of HR Harmer in New York City.
And this is Conversations with Philatelists. So, Charles, today our guests, if you will.
Mini episode today.
Talking specifically about the Museum of Philately. We're talking to Devlan Kruk and Marcus Orsi again.
Who's becoming a regular on Conversations with Philatelists.
Yeah.
So this is exciting. The Museum of Philately is a digital initiative by David Feldman Auctions that's teaming up with virtual Stampex to provide a resource to people who want to view great collections or great items. Basically everything you would expect from a museum, but in a virtual space. Yeah. And I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about this. I learned a bit during the first virtual Stampex, but for me, this is as much a learning experience as any of our listeners, I'd imagine. So I'm really excited to have Devlan and Marcus on with us today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I frequented it in the first virtual Stampex. I know they've added some things. That's what they're here to talk about.
Like everyone else.
Yeah.
I think they're using second virtual Stampex as a chance to build on what they learned and make a bigger and better Museum of Philately. So let's bring these two gentlemen on.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
Good. How are you?
How are you?
Yeah, good.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Good to see you again, Marcus.
Good to see you.
We're getting to see each other regularly there.
Michael's going to have you on to replace me at some point.
Great. So, thank you for both joining us. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about why you're on today, the Museum of Philately?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say. In some ways, we can just kick off and talk. I think one of the topics that we wanted to plug particularly is the second virtual Stampex, which is coming up at the end of this month. And we've got we've managed to put up the Anatoly Karpov's collections of Belgium, which is the sort of the latest big addition to the museum, and that's a huge sort of honor to be able to have done that. I mean, obviously the collections have been sold, but it's to bring them to the museum and preserve them, and so that's the sort of launch for virtual Stampex. And then there's the tours. Devlan, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, me and Marcus are going to be doing a couple of virtual museum tours, showing people, probably start with the Karpov collection because it's new, running over some of the rarities, and also look at some of the other collectors that are in our platform, and introducing perhaps some little anecdotal stories behind the scenes. We've also got a talk by John Davis, who's a sort of an eminent present-day collector. He's the sort of past president of the Great Britain Philatelic Society and past chairman of Stamp Active here in the UK. And he's a gold medal winning collector who's going to be talking about his Great Britain Queen Victoria 1890 penny post jubilee collection. So we're quite excited about that. And that's completely free. These talks and tours are completely free, and anybody can sign up and enjoy those.
Great.
Another plug for Stampex and virtual Stampex. And are you guys going to be involved?
Yeah, we've actually got a booth there at Stampex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
One thing that I wonder about, between the Museum of Philately and other auction houses and societies, there's been a huge push in recent years to preserve collections intact before they're sold, and to sort of create a record where even after these things end up in 100 different collections, there's a way to experience the collection when it was at its peak. And this is, I think, a fairly modern movement in philately. So for both of you, is there one collection historically that you wish the Museum of Philately had been around for, to have seen it at its absolute zenith? Is there one collector who you wish you could have flipped through his album pages and experienced everything they had.
Well, interesting this, because this takes us to, I'm going to let Devlan answer that as well, because we both have surely different opinions. But it takes us to a subject which we'll touch on later. But we've got this kind of theme in our head of past, present, and future. So the past, it's pretty easy. I mean, it's going to be, for you guys, it's going to be Arthur Hind, or for us, it's going to be Burris or Ferrari or Tapling. These are the guys of the past. What do you think, Devlan?
Yeah, no, it's funny. We talked about this earlier on today when we were putting in some data in the museum, and I needed to put in a chap called Vernon Roberts, and he's probably not that well known to many people around the world. However, he was a philatelist that had many significant items in his collection. And what's important about him, the reason I'm talking about him, is that he was inspired by Thomas Taplin to start a sort of a stellar collection. So we've recognised that many philatelists get their inspiration from past collectors, but the museum is of course about preserving that. But it's also about the modern day, current world-class philatelists. But also we want to try and inspire the philatelists of the future. Who are we going to be talking about in 5, 10, 15 years time, and will they get their inspiration from being able to have access to some of the world's greatest collections that would have only been available to a very small minority of people who could perhaps travel around the world or had connections with certain people who had these collections either exhibited or on show somewhere. So yeah, to answer your question, though, for me, the Taplin collection is still possible, isn't it, in inverted commas, because it's in the British Museum. So you wonder if in the future we could do something like that. But yeah, I mean, the names would be Ferrari, would be a name that would come up, because will anybody ever be able to assemble an almost complete world collection in the manner in which he did? I mean, since the Ferrari sales in 1920s, that many of the rarities have been dispersed all around the world. So it'd be quite a difficult task to reassemble them. So yeah, it'd have been great to have seen Ferrari's collection intact.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say Ferrari for the simple reason that actually what's most interesting about the Ferrari collection was obviously he's known for all his great rarities, right? But he had incredible. I mean, in the auctions they had these little mixed lots. But you can imagine,
lots drive me crazy trying to dissect what's in a description. It's amazing.
Exactly. So you can imagine there's probably modern day rarities just thrown into little boxes that were sold.
Today you could create an entire auction catalog out of a couple of balance lots of Ferrari stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think Ferrari would be my choice too. Yeah.
So
you'll be giving a tour during Stampex.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a look, we want people to, I mean, it's interesting picking up on what you were saying earlier about preserving collections and so on. I think we've got to try, and I mean, this is what I hope we can do with the museum, is we've got to get beyond I would like to get beyond the feeling that the information that we have in the museum is our information, and that it's ours, therefore we're possessive of it. I would love to get to a place where, I mean, if it's our product, it would be wonderful. If it's another product, fine. I'm hoping we'll get traction and it'll be our product that makes it. But it would be great if we could work together as a world of philately to pull together all this information, because what happens is it gets lost. So walk-through tours of a collection can only happen if we have the collection.
Right.
It can't happen if we haven't been able to preserve it. I mean, we'll announce in a couple of weeks, probably around Stampex, we're going to announce a really great collection that is going to come our way as far as the museum is concerned, and it's one British Commonwealth collection and one Europe collection, but put together by the same person, and the collection is intact. It's not being sold for the moment. So it's a collection and it's enormous. And it's just going to be fantastic to work with the family, because unfortunately the collector passed away. Be fantastic to work with the family to preserve, and that's it. Whenever I've been, obviously handling collections all my life, and the sad thing is when a collection either is broken down. I mean, we use this word broken down. It's already so dramatic. Let's break the collection down. And that's exactly what we do. We tear up the pages, we rip the things off and it's like this guy spent his whole life putting this collection together. And we don't, sometimes it's not worth it. But so many collections, it's worth preserving it,
Yeah, yeah. Is there kind of an initiative to, you say, looking back at the past collections that you would have liked to have seen, to recreate almost just digitally those collections? So say the Ferrari collection, you can recreate it using just the scans because you knew what was in there, and have people walk through and view it.
We go on, Devlin. Tell them what we've just done. Go on.
We've just made an improvement to the website so that when you click on a collector, so take Morris Burroughs as an example, where we've tagged him as having a particular rarity in his collection, it now displays alongside his biography.
Oh, wow.
So as we keep populating the system with different collections, and we look back over the sort of history of the sale of that particular item, and we tag Burroughs or Ferrari, it will start to build up all the rarities that they had in their collection. So even today, if you went onto the museumofphilately.com and went to collectors, found Morris Burroughs' bio, now along the right-hand side of him, it's got provenance, and it shows all the world rarities that he's owned in his collection. And if you click on it, it tells you when he had them. And if the information is available, wasn't always available to us at the time, is how much he paid. So, and then the great thing is once you drill down to a rarity, you've got the provenance history starting to build up as well. So as we start to populate the museum with collectors, like I mentioned Vernon Roberts today, he wasn't in the database, but he keeps coming up on very, very significant items. And I was working on the Bombay cover, which is a Mauritius cover with 2 1D reds on it. And to put in perspective, this is a cover that sold for over $1 million, and I thought, look, the guy bought it in 1898, and I've got Liechtenstein and Burroughs and all the others. I need to put him in there. So gradually, we're starting to build up a complete picture of a world rarity and who had it in their collection, when, and what they paid for it. And that information can be looked at either through the rarity or it can be looked at through the collector. So yeah, you're right. I think as we go along, the exciting thing is we are starting to build up a picture of the collections that some of these greats had.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible.
And then, of course, we were going back to the past, present, and future. Obviously, what's very much on our hearts now is to, because going into the past is wonderful, and it's wonderful for, sorry to say, geeks like us, because we like opening up the old dusty catalogs. But the reality is we want to deal with the present collectors, the ones that are alive today. We don't want them to die off and lose their connection. So what's very important, and that's why the Karpov collection, why it's significant, is that we want to start working on living legends that are still existing. I mean, there are still some great collectors out there. I mean, do you know Kramer? What's his name? George Kramer. Does anyone know George? I mean, I don't know. Obviously he's getting on now. I don't know how he's doing, but what a character, And I mean, I would love to have sat with him and talked to him and find out more about, what he does, or Wolski, Stephen Wolski. All these guys are just phenomenal people. And, I think we talk? Yeah, I think we talked about Wolski and the last time we were on with Ricky, we talked about Wolski and Paris and why he got inspired going to the stamp market in Paris. But we've got to start doing that now, and it can't just be the Museum of Philately. We all have to work together to get that information on. And I would love to see that it's one application that does it. Because if everybody does their bit, it never really, it doesn't really hit home. Because everyone's done that. Oh, well, someone's done it for Canada, and someone's done it for New South Wales, and someone's done it for South Africa, but we haven't pooled them all together. And that's really what we're doing with the World Rarities, is that we can't cover every stamp. We can't cover the whole world. We can take, I don't know, we were talking about it today, the 1,000 top rarities of the world, 1,000, 1,500, maybe 2,000. We can't do everything. Because if you try and do everything, you'll get lost.
Yeah, that was something I was just gonna ask about, the 1,000, 2,000. I was gonna say might be a bit of a difficult question, but where is your threshold for great collectors or world rarities? What is the threshold that you're looking at?
Interestingly enough, we in the 19, I think I don't know if you've seen these.
One of the things we have done while Marcus is going through his library is we've made sure we've got what we felt were the top 10 most famous stamps in there. I mean, there are more than top 10 in there, and then we're going to work on maybe the top 20, top 50, top 100. And the great thing about this is you know, we can engage with people and say, look, do you think we're right? You know, do you think this is the top 10? I mean, Marcus has got his view on the top 10, and I've got my view, and other people have got different views. But sometimes it isn't about the value; it's about its rarity, or the mystique behind it, or the story behind it, or the amount of collectors, the heavyweight collectors who wanted to have it in their collection. That sometimes pushes a stamp that might be in position 12 to position 5. You know, and it's a bit like, you know, we all go on about the British Guiana 1 cent magenta. Yeah, okay, so that's sold for $9.46 million. Okay, so it's the world's most valuable stamp. That's its title. And also it's rare, there's only one of a kind. But what would the Treskin yellow sell for if it sold today? What would the Bordeaux cover sell for if it went for today? And then there's other material that you could say, what would happen if that came to market and there was 3 or 4 people after that? So it's a really emotive subject and very exciting subject that we're onto. I'll let you.
Yeah, it's all right. In the 19, I think it was the 1980s, we produced 2. When was this? Yes, the 1990s, 1997. We produced. This is the Encyclopedia of Rare Stamps. I don't know if you've seen that before. So we produced a volume called the Biographies and a volume called the Histories. So the histories are fascinating. It's all about the stories, which is what people love. That's what we want to create the stories. The biographies, of course, is the provenance and how much it sold for and so on. So I suppose the inspiration for the museum was born out of what we did in those days. That's where it came out of. And now it's sort of morphing into something different. But the volume that we never produced was the catalog. So we were going to have 3 volumes. Volume 1, stories. Volume 2, biographies. And volume 3 was going to be the catalog. So it comes back to your question about what's the threshold. Well, the threshold at the time was, and that was in 1990, any stamp that was cataloged at $5,000 or more in Scot. So you can actually do it any way you want. You can say, okay, every stamp cataloging $100,000 or more. Fine. How many are there? Well, there aren't going to be that many. So you just go down and you stop at some point when you get to, I don't know, 500 or 800 or 1,000 rare stamps, and you create the catalog of rare stamps of the world. Which actually, I don't think. I mean, you know, the problem we have, of course, is that we all have arguments about which are rare stamps, and you know, and you know, people who are particularly in love with one country say, oh, well, you've got to have this stamp in there. So, but you're right, you have to have a criteria, and unfortunately, the easiest criteria is probably the value. Although sometimes catalog values are subjective, of course.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Wait, and my last question for you guys is, when you talk about the future, you know, you talk about one system that, instead of you know, a bunch of fragmented systems where people are doing different countries, you talk about ideally having one vessel for all this information moving forward. But for people who maybe don't have an international large gold collection, for people who maybe just enjoy going to Stampex and taking the tour, what do you think people can do to help moving forward? How can they become involved in a project like this if they're not there's a lot of people who will be patrons of the Museum of Philately without necessarily being able to contribute their own collection. So how do you see collectors of lower to mid tier getting involved in the future?
Oh, it's a tricky question. I mean, I think that we've set our stall out to look at sort of the top end and then come down from that. I think whether we'll ever go below the sort of current level we're doing, I think that's probably we might get diluted. It's probably the worry we have,
sure.
And get distracted from the sort of overarching objective of the project. Is to kind of display world-class collections, which are probably the most difficult to assemble, and also celebrate the sort of work that these world-class philatelists have done in getting these collections together. The problem with trying to come down much further than that is that it does dilute the kind of the project, because it's very time-consuming. Sure. It doesn't matter, even if you look at sort of Karpoff's collection we put in recently, there's 3 collections. One of them's got 425 pages, pages that have been scanned. The others are sort of 100. So that it just in scanning and describing and indexing and then working out which ones are the rare items is a massive task. If you try and do that with a collection of that's perhaps not at that level, it becomes a much greater task to do it resource-wise. People can get involved, and one of the things me and Marcus have talked about is that we want help from other people. We want other people to contribute to our system, because there's people out there that are experts in a certain field, and they could help populate a certain part of our museum. Absolutely. With the stuff that they know, and we all know philatelists out there that are experts in obscure military mail during the Russian Revolution of 1970, and me and Marcus haven't got the expertise, the know-how all the time. And so it'd be brilliant to find people all around the world that could contribute with their expertise and with the things that they know. And occasionally they will have items in their collection which are probably unique. They might not be worth $500,000, but they could be the only one in the whole world, in which case, we've got to get those into the system. And indeed, we will be hunting for new collections, and those new collections don't necessarily have to be Grand Prix winning or gold medal winning. They could just be the world's greatest collection of that particular theme or that particular topic or that particular region. So yeah, we are gonna appeal for collectors and contributors and collections that might not necessarily be these world-class collections, but they could well be unusual or unique in a different sense.
And there's the other side is the bibliophiles, the guys who perhaps don't have the money to own expensive collections, but have studious minds and have studied and have read up about philately all their lives and have read the great catalogs and the great books and have real knowledge. Those people, when they pass away, they pass away with all that knowledge. So we would love to work with people like that they may not own the pieces or have owned the pieces, but they know all about them. And I'm convinced, I'm sure you've met people like that, who they wish they had the money to have the pieces, but they have that knowledge, and that some of them have photographic memories. They can come up with, oh yeah, I remember this was sold by this, and also people have stories. We actually talked about the stories of purchasing an item, okay? And a great story of a collector, friend of mine who passed away, Dr. Casey. He used to go to Russia in the 1960s and 70s. And all the collectors in Moscow would know he was coming, and he'd have a stack of $1 notes. And he'd ask them to come to the hotel, and they'd bring their finds, the things that they had brought along. And of course, Raymond would buy these things for $1 here, $1 there, and so on and so forth. Then he tells me the story of this this guy who comes who says, I've really got this very valuable thing and I want $50 for it. And there's this big conversation and going on. And in the end, I think they settle on $45 or something like that. And that cover was put into one of our auctions and it sold for $500,000. So I think those are great stories. And I mean, everybody has those great stories. So those are the things, there's nuggets of information that actually are out there as great stories that we all know. We need to preserve them.
So how can people contribute? How can people reach out to you and provide this information or get in contact with you?
Well, I mean, that's actually something that Devlan and I really need to think about. We've got nothing planned, but now that we've already had these thoughts, I mean, the idea of a Wikipedia style thing is a way to do it. It's just technology to allow people then to contribute, and then we have an editor who comes in and messes around, and we've got to be very specific of the kind of information we want. But yeah, the answer is watch this space. We will investigate, and we will be, I'm hoping to, by the end of this year, that we're going to have most of what we really want up ready. So that'll be I mean, do make a note of that, Devlan. So
well,
it was said on that program that you will. Oh yes, no, that's a definite. I mean, up until then, I mean, just contact us on the website.
And I'm sure visiting the museum at Virtual Stampex is a great way to get to know you guys as well.
Absolutely. And of course, we've just launched recently a blog, which is now also on the museum site. So that blog is going to obviously be populated by a lot of the work that Devlan's been doing, writing fantastic articles, and we're populating social media with some of that. And so that blog is going to be, something that is also generating traffic as well.
A great Twitter feed as well for the museum, I have to mention.
One of the things I ought to perhaps mention to Charles and Michael is a stepping stone to what we were just talking about. Is we've only just recently introduced a new tab on the website called Experts, and we haven't populated it other than put one expert body in there so far. But the idea is that we're going to populate that with all the expert bodies, and then we're going to start to sort of put information about the people who actually act as experts for those particular bodies. And the other thing now that means is that when you go onto a rarity, you can start to see the certificates that have been produced. So if you went on the website today and went on to the BPA or in the expert section, it lists all the certificates that we've uploaded into the database against the rarities. So as we move along this road, we will put other expert bodies in there, and the certificates that we've already got that are already registered against a particular rarity will appear again, on their page. But also we want to try and give people a bit more information about who these people are, because experts in some respects, also great collectors often, but they're really interesting chaps, past, present, but also we want to try and get some future experts, don't we? So yeah, that's another initiative, and I think that's a good stepping stone to getting a broader audience of contributors, people who perhaps, as Marcus said, could help us with some detailed information, bibliographies, and so forth.
Yeah, well, this is great. This has been super informative. Thank you for do you have anything else that one last thing you want to share before we close up?
Well, ultimately, the ultimate goal in the end, and this is obviously beneficial to everybody in our business, everybody in the trade, is, and of course this has been done in the past, and I don't know whether it's been done very successfully, but the whole idea of a stamp index, and this is not linked to investment, so you can just you can just cross that off. I'm not saying investment. This has nothing to do with investment at all. It's just purely the data which is going to be inputted, and then from that data you can create algorithms that show developments or price history and so on and so forth. And I think that's, if you want, that's the sort of the final aspect which we're working on as we speak. And in fact, I was talking to my developer this morning, and he has some interesting ideas. So that really for me is going to be when obviously it's got to be populated, and that's the big challenge, and that's why we need help, is the more data that's in there, the more we can extrapolate and so on and so forth. But that would be the ultimate for me, is to have and then you can get finance people coming and looking at stamps objectively with data.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not data. I mean, we're not trying to sell them something.
Right.
It's real, raw, pure data that is true data. It's not, it's not there to try to invent something. And maybe the data won't show a great picture, but it's real data, and that data then can be checked. Did this stamp actually sell for this at that auction? And the answer is yes, or hopefully yes. So that, I think that's my sort of that when I get that to that stage, I'm feeling like we're getting there. And of course, there's the whole aspect of then taking the museum to the next level, which is where you start having an interactive, a walkthrough. I mean, I said to Devlan earlier, wouldn't it be amazing to create an environment where you could walk into a room and there would Ferrari would be sitting at the desk, I mean, I know it's crazy, but I mean, this is happening in other fields.
Yeah.
So this idea of, and that's what, bringing to life all these things, suddenly you're going to get new people interested, which is the whole point.
Yeah.
Past, present, and future. That's, if I something you guys can remember about today, it's past, present, and future. We're very important to look into the past, very important to preserve the information that we have today, the present, and very important that we all work towards building collectors and enthusiasts. Maybe people who don't have money, but people who are collectors, who are enthusiastic about our hobby for the future.
Mm-hmm. That's important stuff. That's a powerful tool. That would be the index. Yeah. This has been great. Thank you both so much for meeting with us and talking to us about the museum, sharing its possibilities and what's soon to come.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys, if you guys have ideas, we'd love to, chat at another time. One time, maybe in the real world when we meet up again.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And in the meantime, I'm looking forward to virtual Stampex. I can't wait to see what you guys are putting on. That'll be a lot of fun.
Super.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you both real soon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you both
guys.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Virtual Stampex is in a week now. It's
I
a
was
week
going to say,
from
I'm gonna put you on the spot. What are the dates?
March 25th to 27th.
March 25, 26, 27. So we're quickly approaching. I keep wanting to say, I'll see you in March to people.
It is March, yeah.
It is March already. So I will see you at Virtual Stampex, March 25th through 27th. Let's meet up at the Museum of Philately. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm really
meeting
excited.
Up a bunch of places.
Yeah, well, we've got our own booth. Let's hopefully
right.
Up
So
there.
hopefully, yeah, we'll see.
But I'm really excited for what they're doing. The recreation of collections. I think that's incredible, and I like the fact that
It needs a VR component.
Yeah.
I want to get
an
Oculus.
You've seen
So
Iron Man, right?
No.
Here's your chance to lie. But
The George Washington of this podcast.
Yeah.
I've not seen Iron Man, but imagine virtually walking through a stamp exhibit from the 1930s would be so cool.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the new website. So they actually have a website, museumoffphilately.com, but they also have an app you can download on the App Store that's on the Apple App Store and then also on Google Play Store, where you can view everything that's on the website just as you can on your phone.
And I meant what I said about the Twitter account too. It's a fun Twitter page.
Oh yeah.
Not that I don't enjoy everyone I follow, but that one in particular is a good Twitter follow. So go check that out. But yeah, let's maybe in an intro or outro in the future we can talk about our experiences at the Museum of Philately.
Yeah.
We sort of do a wrap up of virtual Stampex in general. I think would be fun for us to circle back around on this.
Yeah, it really would be.
Well, Michael, really excited, really looking forward to virtual Stampex. This is going to be fun. And we have a booth. So anybody listening to this, since we're just a week out, please come visit our booth and say hey. And I plan on taking the day shift. Michael, you get the overnight shift.
Perfect.
So one of us will be there 24 hours a day for 3 days.
It's great.
Yep. That's a promise to our listeners.
Yep. Okay. So you can find us on on YouTube. You can find us on anywhere you listen to podcasts. philatelypodcast.com, philatelypodcast@gmail.com.
Michael, this was a lot of fun. Let's do it again real soon.
Yep. I'll see you at Virtual Stampex.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye-bye.